Today, we're diving deep into the turbulent waters of the short-term rental market. Lots of us have dreamed about owning a waterfront property and renting it out when we're not using it, and the guests pay the mortgage and the expenses, but it is no longer that simple. Airbnb began as a solution to expensive hotels, and it has evolved into a billion-dollar industry, which completely reshaped global tourism, and it also completely reshaped housing markets. This evolution has had some major challenges, so watch on. Let's first talk about a major policy shift that is making waves: Airbnb's permanent ban on parties.
Right, the party's over for Airbnb renters. The company said yesterday that its temporary ban on parties and other large, noisy events is now permanent.
Airbnb as a platform once was synonymous with the freedom of alternative accommodation, and it's now reinforcing traditional hospitality norms. This change has significant implications for investors like the ones I've previously mentioned, who either have short-term rentals as businesses or else who bought a property to rent it out when they're not using it. Investors who've committed savings, complied with a ton of regulations, and navigated the complexities of a business license in some cases. This party ban, it's more than a policy shift. It's a response to a growing housing crisis, and it attempts to reintegrate short-term rentals into the long-term housing market. On top of that, there are recent reports that hint at hidden debts and undisclosed liabilities from Airbnb that could total billions. This revelation is not just a bump in the road. If it's true, it's a potential cliff edge for the industry.
According to a source familiar, Airbnb has over $3 billion in cash on its balance sheet as of today. That is down from $3.5 billion as of the first quarter of this year. I'm also told that Airbnb has never touched its $1 billion line of credit and that it has been cumulatively free cash flow positive since inception. Now, this comes after a report this morning.
After a while, I don't know who to believe anymore.
A lot of people don't know this, so let me take you on a little walk down memory lane and we'll revisit the inception of Airbnb. Founders Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, facing a hotel room shortage, creatively offered an air mattress in their apartment, coining the term air bed and breakfast. This humble beginning has since exploded into a global phenomenon and has dwarfed traditional hotel giants in market valuation. Airbnb's initial draw was its blend of affordability and homeliness, providing a really nice alternative to sterile hotel environments. This same appeal is now threatened from a lot of different directions. Changing customer preferences, host challenges, shifting public opinion, and the platform's own identity crisis. For hosts who hosted on the platform, the early days of Airbnb were very lucrative for them for their real estate investments. But as the market becomes more and more saturated and the profitability gap between short-term rentals and long-term rentals narrows, the shine is wearing off for some people. Many hosts now face financial uncertainty, and they're left questioning the viability of short-term rentals as a sustainable business model. On the customer front, Airbnb's position as a budget-friendly choice is eroding. They're facing stiff competition from luxury hotels, and the platform is losing its cost advantage. Additionally, the emergence of apartment-style hotel accommodations offers a pretty compelling middle ground in some cases: the comfort of an Airbnb with the reliability of a hotel stay. Increasing service expectation and rising cleaning fees are further alienating some of Airbnb's customer base. And the public backlash is growing louder. Some urban areas are already grappling with housing shortages, and they're getting increasingly hostile to short-term rentals.
Second homes have long been an aspirational dream for middle-class families. Then in 2008, Airbnb arrived on the market. Through its online marketplace for homestays, the Silicon Valley-based company has had a huge impact on the travel industry, with self-catering accommodations now as popular as hotels. But it has also created what is called the Airbnb effect, where the growing number of short-term rentals in a location in high demand leads to a rise in both rental rates and house prices, and many people aren't happy about it.
We've witnessed a huge rise in local legislation aimed at regulating what has effectively become an unregistered hotel industry. Different locations are handling it differently. For example, where I live and work in Minnesota, in Edina, no rentals are permitted for a duration of less than 30 days, period. On the Hawaiian island of Kauai, there are tourist destination zones, and within those zones, short-term rentals are allowed, but according to Hawaii short-term rental laws, state transient accommodation tax, the TAT, and general excise tax, GAT, have to be paid on Airbnb rental income, And that means you need to get a state tax identification number. Investors can get this number, file taxes, and pay dues through a portal, the Hawaii Tax Online. And in Cape Coral, Florida, the legality of Airbnb or short-term rentals for non-owner occupied property is currently not regulated, but it sure is in other Florida cities like Orlando and Miami. So you can see the regulations vary widely from state to state and city to city. And regulations are forcing a recalibration of the short-term rental business model. Adding to the complexity, homeowners associations are stepping into the fray as well. They're limiting short-term rentals in an attempt to protect community interest, creating an uncertain future for platforms like Airbnb, at least as far as associations are concerned. Now, in the midst of this, Airbnb is undergoing an identity crisis. And what I mean by that, it's struggling to reconcile its community-focused ethos with the harsh realities of a rapidly expanding market. This tension is opening the doors for different competitors who are capitalizing on the challenges Airbnb has faced by offering lower fees and more diversified services. VRBO is the best known competitor of Airbnb, and there are a lot of other lesser known competitors. Some of the ones that you may not have heard of include HouseTrip, Home2Go, Tripping.com, and Flipkey. If you're thinking about purchasing a waterfront property to use as a rental, the first thing to be really clear on is, what is your end goal? And what do I mean by this? Well, is this purely an investment property that you're buying to make some money on through cash flow and tax benefits and hopefully appreciation? Or is your goal to buy a waterfront place that you're going to use from time to time with your family and rent out when you're not using it in the meantime, effectively having renters pay all or most of your mortgage and ongoing expenses for your waterfront property? Either one of these goals is fine, but make sure that you are crystal clear on what you're going for, because it'll completely change what you end up buying. One example that I've previously given is, let's say you're married and you have 2 kids. Well, if your goal is to buy a lake home and offset the cost of that by renting it out and then use it as an occasional vacation place for your family, then you'll need to buy a lake place that will fit your family. And this might not be the most profitable short-term rental option for you guys, but that's okay, because that's what you're looking for your future. And if you're purely looking for a short-term rental that's going to bring you the best returns, then the configuration of the property won't necessarily matter for your family. You're just looking at the bottom line. I'll give you a personal example. A few years ago, we wanted to add another waterfront property to our real estate portfolio, a short-term rental property in another state. And the real estate agent who helped me there asked me this exact question. Is this purely an investment, or is it somewhere my family and I are going to use ourselves sometimes? And I answered the question, oh, it's purely investment. But then the properties I was most interested in were actually homes that I would want to bring my own family to visit and stay at someday. So I wasn't actually clear for myself what our goals were for my own property search. And in the end, after I analyzed the returns on the properties that I would want to have for my own family to enjoy someday versus the purely investment properties, the properties that were purely for investment actually returned more, so we ended up going with one of those. Given everything I've said about the Airbnb industry, it's more important than ever to make sure that you're working with someone who is intimately familiar with the local rules and regulations in the different areas you may be considering, so that you don't face disappointment or surprise at what you can and what you cannot do with your new property. The short-term rental market is at a pivotal juncture. The staggering growth of platforms like Airbnb has exposed a really delicate balance that's needed between the market demands, community well-being, and also sustainable business practices. As we navigate through this time with short-term rentals, it's crucial to stay informed and adaptable. If you're finding value in my real estate deep dives, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications so that you can get notified of the latest video insights in real estate. And if you're keen on a more broad perspective on this subject, make sure to check out another video I made, and I'll link it here.